Wandering around in a blizzard, off of vague directions in a land they knew nothing about? Yeah, Shikamaru probably would have taken that option over the one they were currently saddled with. Now, they were stuck in a series of underground corridors of all shapes and sizes, leading to who knew where. In addition to that, they were now facing off with a foreign team of older Genin that seemed several years their elders. And they didn't necessarily seem to be the helpful type.
I had hoped we'd be able to get through this without fighting anyone,
Shikamaru said to his teammates so that the team of rain Genin couldn't hear him. This was just great. They were dragging in the awareness department due to the pace they had been cutting across the landscape in, and now that they had found where to go, they still weren't getting a moment of reprieve. Ino was only slightly more ready for a fight than Shikamaru was.
Come on, Shikamaru. The chance of us actually dodging two teams just isn't our luck,
she said, not taking her eyes off their potential enemies.
Maybe a fight will wake us up.
I'm already awake, Naruto commented, holding his machete at the ready.
And what are you guys talking about? What directions?
He asked the other team. One of the rain Genin laughed at Naruto's question and pointed at him.
Looks like the babies didn't pay enough attention to everything their sensei said.
He looked towards the member of the team missing an eye with scars on his face.
Shigeru, let's just squash these runts and move on. Less competition, right?
The lead Genin with the battle scars, Shigeru, let out a scoff.
If they don't know anything about where to go from here, then they're just in the way. They can't make sense of the vague little directions they got either way. So who needs them? Get rid of them. Bowie, put them down. You got the most chakra right now,
he said to the shortest of the team. Hearing that caused Naruto and Ino to bristle in anger.
You jerk!
Ino snapped at them.
You think one of your teammates can beat all three of us?
Feisty. You're too young for me, though.
The small one, Bowie, commented on Ino's attitude.
But in this case, he's kind of right. Without jutsu, only one of us really needs to attack to beat you. You three little kids are about to see how the big ninja play.
He pulled his umbrella from his back and threw it into the air, forming a tiger sail as he did so.
Senbone shower!
The umbrella hovered in the air between the two teams and spun rapidly, as it began spitting a rain of needles in all directions. Team 10 were immediately in full retreat mode, ducking behind the rocky outcroppings that were placed all throughout the corridor of the tunnel that they were in, as they barely took cover before the needles implanted themselves in the cave rocks, in a seemingly never-ending spray. From their place ducking behind the rocks, Ino had to make a comment.
I wonder if they buy some special cartridges of needles to fill those with. What if they have to hand load them?
There was no need to ask. It was probably some hidden rain secret that she wouldn't be privy to anyway. She was kinda jealous though. Well, at least her aim was better, and she didn't waste nearly as many. Shikamaru, while disenfranchised over having to fight, already had his mind working on what to do.
Naruto, get some clones and knock that thing out of the sky.
On it! Naruto said, forming the hand seal for his signature jutsu and creating 5 shadow clones, one of which threw their machete at the umbrella from behind cover to knock it down and stop the spray of needles. Naruto heard a bark elaborate from one of the rain ninja about how he apparently threw away his lead weapon. One of Naruto's clones, namely the one that had thrown his machete, didn't take too kindly to being made fun of for just following the plan laid out for it by its commander, and it reflected this by throwing its entire stock of shuriken from behind cover, getting a satisfying shriek of surprise and pain from the enemy. It then dispelled due to his lack of weaponry, taking its actual use away. With the rain Genin, most of them had avoided Naruto's clone's little angry attack. The one that had been laughing, the one that was taller than Bowie but shorter than Shigeru, wound up taking 5 shuriken to different parts of his body, 2 to the chest, 3 to the thigh. Bowie looked at his wounded teammate in concern.
Midare, you're hurt,
he commented.
That's it,
Shigeru said, all humor now gone from his tone now that his own partner was injured. If those punks went to play ninja, then he'd show them just how real things could get.
Slaughter those rats! Let's see them dodge this!
He threw 3 umbrellas in the air.
Senbone shower!
This time, all 3 of his umbrellas spat needles at a far faster rate than before, with the umbrellas themselves drifting directly over the cover that the leaf Genin had taken refuge behind. Midare pulled the shuriken out of his body and let out a mean-spirited laugh.
Serves those punks right,
he said, dropping the last metal star to the ground with a clatter. They all walked over to confirm that Team 10 were firmly out of commission, but when they turned to look behind where they'd been taking cover, they found nothing. Shigeru growled.
What? Where'd they go?
He turned his back to begin looking around and saw a shadow speeding across the floor at him and his team.
Move!
He shouted in warning as he jumped away. The warning came too late for one, however, as the wounded Midare wasn't fast enough to avoid being caught. He wound up frozen in place as the shadow touched his own.
What the hell is this? Someone get me out of this!
He more or less begged his squad mates as he had no idea what would happen to him next. Whatever it was, odds wouldn't be good. Bowie turned when he saw a blur in his peripheral vision and wound up blocking a Senbone with his extended umbrella, pushing it down to see that Ino had been the one to try and get him.
Nice try, but we're not that easy to beat.
He ran at her and took 2 swipes at her with his umbrella, missing both strikes as Ino seemingly danced out of his line of attack.
Hold still.
Fuck you. How about that?
Ino replied freely in an unconcerned voice.
This guy was so slow.
He should have just stuck to doing his little Sinbone trick with the umbrella, but they obviously only had 1 salvo per umbrella, and this guy only had 1 of them, unlike his teammate who had 3. Even that idiot had used all 3 of his umbrellas at once. From the relentless Sinbone attack from before, and from the way that Bowie was attempting to flail at her in that untrained looking way with his umbrella, this was a team of 1 hit 1 kill ninja. And they had more or less just blown their wad early on in the fight, just because they thought that as a young team, Ino and the others wouldn't be able to handle it. The only one of them with a fully loaded umbrella had already been caught by Shikamaru. He wasn't going anywhere. His other teammate wouldn't get to Shikamaru to free him. Naruto would make sure of that, which meant that this guy was all hers. She could deal with that. But every time she backed off enough to grab some for Sinbone and throw them at him, he would always have that stupid umbrella up to block her attacks. He was 100% mobile, so her clan jutsu was a total no-no in this instance. That weapon of his looked too sturdy for her to risk taking a shot just to get in and try and disarm him, even if she had been used to fighting the bull that was Naruto. She was nowhere near as physically strong as him, and her taijutsu was rather poor. Maybe he could take a lick or 2 from an umbrella just to grab it and beat the goon with it, but she couldn't.
I so didn't want to waste one of these for this, but it's a fight.
Ino thought to herself as she reached into her pouch and threw a small orb that exploded in a blue cloud in contact with Bowie's umbrella.
Breathe deep, little man.
She thought victoriously as his body was fully engulfed in gas.
Good night.
However, when Bowie stepped from the cloud, there was an oxygen mask on his face connected to the tank on his back.
Oh, come on! Go down already!
She exclaimed while throwing a fit.
Sorry.
Bowie said sarcastically.
This is pretty much standard issue for all Rain Ninja. Don't you Leaf Ninja handle like this for all your recruits?
He asked mockingly with a laugh.
Your little poison gas isn't gonna fly with me, Missy.
That's not all I've got, you bastard.
Ino snapped back. This was still her fight to lose as far as she was concerned. So water sleeping bomb didn't work. She had other ways to get to him. She threw more Sinbone at him with one hand, and predictably, he raised his umbrella to block it. But that left him with a vulnerable area that was wide open, though she would have to aim well to hit it.
Oh!
Bowie yelled as he found a Sinbone needle buried right between his toes that were sticking out of his sandals.
Oh, damn it!
He shouted at Ino. He didn't think she'd go for such a small and pretty much meaningless target.
What is this gonna do? You better have some damn lethal poison to put me down.
A smile came to Ino's lips.
No, it's not lethal. Those are hard to make, and I'm not gonna waste one on your foot when it won't flat out kill you if I hit you there. But that one is a powerful hallucinogen, and it doesn't matter where I hit you because it activates at the same speed, no matter what. So have fun with that,
she said, too cheerful for it to be healthy. Bowie felt fine though.
Huh, well it didn't work.
He taunted until he saw Ino count down her fingers from 5 to 0. 1 0 hit, he felt his vision start to swim. He attempted to lunge at Ino to take her out before whatever happened to him was about to happen, but he hit what he felt to be a ghost, or rather nothing, an after image of what he had seen as Ino. He started looking all over the now multicolored cave and started swinging at bats that were starting to surround him and gnaw at him. He started shrieking desperately and rolling about on the ground to get the bats off of him. Meanwhile, Ino was sitting on a nearby rock, kicking her feet as she watched the Rain Ninjas break down. When I did it to myself, I didn't freak out like that. Actually, I kind of enjoyed it. Maybe my hallucination was just better than his? She wondered as she drew another Sinbone and threw it, hitting Bowie in a far more vital place and forcing him to pass out after a few seconds. Meanwhile, with Shigure.
Where are those little bastards?
The scarred Ame Genin shouted to himself as he looked around the cavern. He turned once he saw his teammate Bowie engaging Ino and moved to assist, but quickly drew one of its umbrellas to try and block an attack he felt coming up behind him. The hard wooden umbrella was cut into 3 segments by 2 clones of Naruto and their wind-enhanced machetes.
Damn, that should have at least stopped a blade, but he cut through it like it was butter. And why are there 2 of this kid? How did this brat know how to make a solid clone?
He was pondering this right up until he felt a pair of arms drop themselves around his waist in a vice-like grip that he couldn't shake free.
Atomic extermination!
As the technique began to be initiated with the sharp popping noise in Naruto's hips that led Shigure off the ground, he managed to stab the sharp end of his broken umbrella into the side of his neck before he could bridge back and slam him to break his own neck. This Naruto burst into smoke, however, proving to be a clone. Getting rid of the urgent threat, he kept backstepping and avoided another close call from Naruto slashing at him. This time, however, it was even closer than what it cut through his umbrella, as this one actually had the connection to his oxygen tank that had been stretched across his chest. In desperation, he reached for another of the umbrellas on his back to defend himself, but once again, it was rendered to pieces by the two Narutos and their weaponry. His attention diverted by the immediate bladed threat in front of him, he never saw the sliding tackle kick at the back of his legs that knocked him off his feet. Shikamaru, however, did see the two clones in front of him leap into the air at him in the moment his feet left the ground.
Who are these kids?
He thought right before everything went black for him. Not too long after, Midare was the only conscious member of the rain squad left and found himself disarmed and tied up alongside his teammates, upside down to a stalactite on the ceiling.
You can't just leave us here!
Shikamaru looked up at him lazily. Good thing Naruto and Ino beat their opponent so fast because he didn't feel like wasting chakra holding that guy in his jutsu and banging the guy's head against something until he was rendered unconscious. It was just too much of a hassle for him.
Yeah, we can, you moron. Watch, it's really easy. You'll be fine until the test is over. Wait!
Midare shouted as he had just seen his teammates get dismantled by this team of runts, while he was kept at bay effortlessly by the shadow of another one.
Get me down!
He could already feel the blood rushing to his head. There was no way he could stay like that for 2 more days.
I'll tell you guys what part of your sensei's explanation you missed. Nah,
Shikamaru said.
That little fight got the blood pumping through my brain. I think it froze while we were outside.
He marked offhandedly before getting back on topic.
We can handle this ourselves. So later,
he said, as he and the rest of his team started walking away. Ino waved up at Midare and pointed at Bowie.
The hallucinogen doesn't wear off for about 18 hours after the antidote, and he'll wake up before then, so have fun with that.
Hey!
Midare shouted, not taking their answer as the way things were going to be.
Get me down! Come on, please! We can't stay here for 2 days!
Ignoring him now that the encounter was for all intents and purposes over, Naruto looked over at Shikamaru.
So you said you knew something about the stuff Asuma-sensei told us, Shikamaru?
Yeah.
He said, trying to speak over Midare's yelling.
Ino, please. If that guy doesn't shut up, he's gonna get everyone else in this stinking place breathing right down our necks.
He asked the female team member nicely, getting her to throw another sleep bomb with Midare, knocking him out.
Thanks.
I only have 3 left now.
Ino muttered as she checked her supplies, but accepting Shikamaru's thanks anyway. Naruto frowned at being left out of the conversation.
Hey, what about the directions of whatever those guys are babbling about?
About that.
Shikamaru continued where he left off from.
Remember what Asuma said? It was a really stupid clue telling us we need to look all over the place to find a way down to these tunnels. But how are we supposed to know where to get the tunnels from when no one knows anything about the country? I guess that was just another part of the test. But there wasn't a damn river to follow, so I guess the rest of what he said goes for down here.
Naruto had a squinted-eyed look of concentration on his face as he tried to dredge up what Asuma meant by his talk of the river, though Ino beat him to it.
Wait, I didn't see any body of water for miles around this mountain. So you're saying that the clue is talking about some underwater river that we're supposed to follow?
I was gonna say that. Naruto mumbled, trailing his foot in the dirt under him.
I want to sound smart sometimes too, you know.
He then snapped out of his funk and formed his cross hand seal.
Multiple shadow clone jutsu!
Naruto then formed one clone for each tunnel that he could see leading from the place they were in and sent them off to find something.
I'll have this handled in no time, you guys.
Shikamaru smirked at the sight of all the Narutos, making things easy for them for once.
So, I guess we can take a break for a bit while Naruto's clones scope things out.
He said as he went to sit and lean against a rock out of sight in case anyone else came stumbling through the area.
Good, because I need a nap.
He finished as he shut his eyes. Ino walked up to him with her hands on her hips.
Really? You're going to sleep here?
She asked incredulously before realizing that the lazy bum was already out of it.
Unbelievable. Now he's not going to wake up until the morning.
It's okay, Naruto said, sitting on the highest rock in the cavern, overlooking the whole place.
Ino didn't even see him or feel him move to get up there. Shikamaru can sleep. You can sleep too, Ino. I can stay awake and keep watch while you guys do.
He grinned down at her and pointed up and over at the rain team. Maybe I'll gag those guys so we don't have to hear them when they wake back up. Ino pouted over at him from where she was standing.
You can't just stay awake all night, Naruto. You need to get some rest too. We've been going since early this morning and tomorrow's going to be a long day.
I can already tell. Shaking his head at her, Naruto pleaded his own case.
I have to stay awake anyway just in case my clones find something. I won't pick it up if I'm asleep when they dispel. Besides, I'm still not very tired yet.
That was a blatant lie, but him working on a quarter of a tank was still better than Shikamaru or Ino working on near empty for certain. The trek outside in that harsh winter weather was a strength drainer.
Fine.
Ino eventually conceded, using the cloak she had been wearing outside to defend from the inclement weather to rest her head on the ground near where Shikamaru was sleeping against a rock.
But when you get tired, wake me or the bum up to take over for you. No amount of info from your clones will do us any good if you're too weak and tired to go on any further to use it.
Get some sleep, Ino, Naruto told her with a grin.
I'll be alright. Ino stared at him with one blue eye cracked open for a few moments before letting it shut, as she moved around trying to get comfortable. Alright. Good night, Goldie-kun. A small mischievous smile came to her lips. Don't go and do anything naughty to me in my sleep, okay? If you're going to, wait till I'm awake so I can enjoy it. She didn't even need to open her eyes to see the look he probably had on his face. It was as clear as day in her mind. Naruto just stared at her with a red face and a twitching eye as he ground his teeth together. I really wish he'd stop doing that, he thought to himself. It's a good thing he wasn't going to sleep that night, because he'd probably been thinking about that exact scenario the entire time. Damn, Sakura was supposed to be the only one he thought of like that. Wait, that didn't sound right either. Damn, Jiraiya.
Back in the village, hotel, VIP lounge. Kurenai didn't know what she was still doing up, especially since there was still nothing really to do. All she was even doing at the moment was just watching some of the other Jonin in attendance at the exams, as they sat around drinking. This was the first real chance she had gotten to hang around this many other Jonin at one time, and she'd expected to be regaled with stories of missions from the past that made them who they were. Hell, at least maybe some personal perspective on what to do with their team. She should have expected that all they would be doing would be getting drunk. In their defense, however, there wasn't much else to do. So this is all you guys got as far as entertainment goes? Kurenai asked with a dull expression on her face as she sat around a coffee table with Kakashi, Asuma, Guy, and a few other Leaf Jonin.
Come on, Kurenai.
Asuma attempted to defend, pointing down at the table between all of them.
This is kind of impressive, you've gotta admit.
Guy was stabbing the space between his fingers at a jackhammer pace.
Especially since he isn't even looking at what he's doing.
Oh, and don't forget he's been drinking since 10:30.
The female Jonin added as she found her attention drawn to Guy, looking like he was doing his best to not accidentally sever his pinky finger.
Still, this is a waste of time.
Ha! Guy exclaimed as he still kept from looking down at his hand as he continued to stab away.
It's never a waste of time to attempt to best my eternal rival, Kakashi, in a challenge. He could never duplicate such a feat. He couldn't possibly outlast me in this challenge.
Kurenai palmed her face while Asuma blocked his own laughter.
Kakashi isn't even doing anything. He's just reading. He only did that once and then started reading and drinking again.
She yelled at Guy before gesturing to the masked man who was still doing just that. Yes, Kakashi said nonchalantly. But then no one ever said I had to keep Guy's pace when doing his challenge. I just had to keep from stabbing my fingers. He put up one hand and waved his fingers. See? No cuts here. Asuma shook his head and looked over at Guy.
You can stop anytime you want, Guy. Kakashi's not going to pick his kunai back up.
He then took notice of the holes Guy had been making in the table.
Someone's going to be pissed off later when they see this. I know that for sure.
A fire filled Guy's eyes.
No, I will not accept another draw in our epic series of challenges. It does not matter. I'll show that hard work can overcome anything. I need to set an example for my precious students, especially Rock Lee.
At that moment, all the other Jonin sitting and listening took a shot. Your kids aren't even anywhere around here. Another of the Jonin in attendance remarked humorously. Where are they anyway? My team had to come back after the first exam. I don't even know what the second one is all about. Asuma shrugged from his place on the couch next to Kurenai.
I already figured it out. I just had to get some basic knowledge on land. I asked a few samurai about my guess when night fell.
He looked at the other Jonin that he knew still had students in the exam.
You know those hints you gave your students when they eventually show up to see you? Apparently the Mountains of the Three Wolves keep a system of tunnels under the village, and the whole trio of mountains in general.
Oh yeah. Kakashi spoke up in realization. It used to be a supply system for frontline defenders in wartime, but they sealed up all the entrances that would be around the actual village due to the danger keeping them open. Now they just use it as a place for the samurai station nearby to train. The walls are supposed to be just short of the density of iron, so that cave-ins weren't caused by some of the samurai's more destructive techniques. Kurenai nodded, understanding just where her team had been sent off to. So, what's it like down there?
Spacious,
Asuma stated.
Most places have space so that you can move around when you're fighting, but it's a total anthill down there. There are all sorts of tunnels to nowhere, some that'll go deeper or will take you right back outside somewhere else, multiple passages, stuff like that.
Guy stood up triumphantly with one fist in the air. My students will triumph in that labyrinth. I believe in all three of them. They're the best of the field this time around. My Lee will show all of them just how splendid a ninja he is. Once again, similar to before, every Jonin took a shot, but this time, Guy noticed.
Tell me, why are all my youthful comrades drinking every time I finish a statement?
Kakashi, whom no one had even seen move to drink, answered him. Well, that's because we all agreed that every time you said anything about that Rock League kid of yours without being asked about it, we'd all take a shot. And we've all been here for 2 hours.
Asuma finished his statement for him, and I think we've taken a dozen shots each.
He scratched his head.
I don't know if I'm right. I had to leave to head to the bathroom for a second, and then there was a time I had to get up and get more drinks.
It's at 17. Kurenai said, seemingly not affected by her alcoholic intake, something that got her an odd look from Asuma. I don't think I'll be walking back upstairs tonight, by the way. She informed them before letting out a hiccup and going half-lidded. There's your cue, Asuma. Kakashi chimed in, trying to be a smartass, before catching a kunai that was thrown at him between his fingers. Hey, don't play with weapons when you're drunk. You can't take a flight of stairs, don't handle a deadly tool. He chatted gently. That last part is some advice for kunai for later. He said before replacing himself with a pillow on the couch that found itself impaled with more kunai. Defensive. Yes! Guy shouted loudly, pointing at Kakashi's finger, blood trailing down from where he had managed to catch the weakly thrown kunai.
I knew that I could win, Kakashi.
That puts me at 51 wins, 50 losses, and 123 draws.
Luckily, the vast majority of the Jonin in the room were inebriated, and thus Guy's falling rant didn't unnerve them nearly as much as it otherwise would have.
The next morning, caves under the land of iron. Crappy ration bar equals breakfast. At least as far as Team 10 went in a situation like this. Most because actually starting a fire to cook anything like the snake Naruto had killed the previous night would have possibly alerted someone that they were there. At least it was enough to get them up and going. So, after Ino and Shikamaru had awakened and partaken in something to eat, Naruto told them what he had been getting from his clones all night long.
This place is huge and deep,
He said.
My clones had to make clones sometimes because trails branched off. Some of the tunnels led to the surface, and some of the clones had to dispel before running into other people. And then there was that one that fell off that cliff and around the corner into that pit. He said, remembering the memory he got from that particular clone's demise. Do you have a way out?
Shikamaru asked him. A way out?
Yeah.
Naruto said with a dry look on his face.
So far, I found about 20 of them that lead back to the surface.
He shook his head.
There isn't anything at any of the exits. The clones checked. So, none of these places led to a river.
Shikamaru questioned, pondering things once more. He got a shake of the head from Naruto.
I guess that means we really are looking for one underground. Did they find one of those?
Naruto nodded and then looked away sheepishly.
Yeah, about that. Are you sure that's where we're supposed to go?
Ino and Shikamaru looked at each other before Ino spoke up.
What's with the second guessing? Yeah, we're sure. What other possible clue we have? Did you find one or not?
I did, but...
Naruto tried to explain why he wasn't so keen on the idea before eventually giving up.
Whatever. If you guys are sure, then let's go,
he said with a gesture, prompting them to follow him.
It's a long way, though,
he said before yawning. Ino put a hand on his shoulder.
Do you need a nap?
Naruto kept walking forward.
No, I just need to get moving again and I'll be fine.
Another lie as he broke into a run that his teammates followed. His clones had been going non-stop all night, circulating the fatigue back onto him when they dispelled, and he'd already been tired in the first place when he made them. But it was a race, and they needed to find the finish immediately. If they thought he was tired, then they would stay for even longer to let him get some sleep, and he didn't need sleep. As far as Naruto was concerned, admitting that one needed sleep was for people that weren't awesome, and he was definitely awesome.
This is great,
Ino said as she and Shikamaru ran through the caves behind Naruto.
We've got the one-man scouting party to look through the place for us.
Naruto let out a groan.
This place is seriously huge, though.
I think my clones have only gone through the tunnels on only one of the mountains. It was a wonder how anyone else was finding their way around down there. Some people would have to get creative with how they searched. With Team 7, Sakura had a torch in hand that she had requested Sasuke to light for her shortly after they had entered the tunnels for more reasons than just illumination. The chamber they were in had multiple patches leading to and away from it. She walked in front of each way, holding up the torch carefully. As she moved between the openings to different paths, Sasuke had his eyes firmly on her as she did so. To be honest, the attention was a little flustering, even if Sakura knew that he wasn't really looking at her so intently, more like the torch. But hey, she'd take what she could get in this instance. After going back and forth 3 times, Sakura turned towards him and Choji.
So, how about it, Sasuke-kun? Which one?
Sasuke had his sharing going on the entire time that he had been staring at the torch so that he could tell which tunnels influenced the flame with the tiniest emotions.
The first 2 were dead ends. The one after the third is probably a lead back to the surface. I would take the 6th tunnel, but we should mark our place because the 5th tunnel would be my second guess. And the 4th and 7th are connected to each other.
Hearing him say that, Choji took out a notepad and handed it to Sakura, taking the torch from her as she added to her sketch the entire map out that she had done thus far of the tunnels, along with their estimated trajectory.
Sakura, how are you doing that?
He asked her. She had barely had a base to start from, yet the map she had made of where they had been looked extremely effective.
That's way too detailed.
A shrug came from the pink-haired girl.
I don't know, it's not that hard.
She stowed the notebook away on her person as Sasuke started leading them down the 6th tunnel to see where it led.
I like puzzles,
she finished lamely, getting a laugh out of Choji. With Team 8, Kiba shook his hands out as he glared over at Shino, a beaten up Leaf team laying behind them.
Great direction, Shino.
he commented as Shikamaru took his place back on Kiba's head. I told you this boy wasn't the right one, and I told you there were people down here. Trust the nose, man. Am I aware of the power of your senses, Kiba? Yes, of course I am, Shino said, hands in his pockets as he responded calmly. I merely figured we could take 2 to 3 minutes to dispose of some of the competition in the race. Who knows how long they've been down here, or how close to the end we are. I am clearly going to rely on your senses and Hinata's Byakugan in this test. They are faster to search with than with my insects. Now let us continue, he said, walking back down the path they came from. A growl came from Kiba as he shook his fist at him. Creepy know-it-all. He's so cool all the time. Since when did he become the leader anyway? He asked no one in particular, getting a small laugh out of Hinata as they followed Shino.
With Team Guy. Tenten paced about as Neji simply sat in front of 2 different passages with his Byakugan activated.
Tenten, be calm. We will get moving again in just a moment. You need to rest after being on guard last night.
We're taking too long.
The weapon-wielding Kunoichi responded irritably.
They said only 12 teams get to advance. Doesn't that mean anything to you?
Not really,
Neji said calmly.
Because I know that we are guaranteed to be one of the teams left standing after this.
He then stood up and dusted himself off.
Lee's almost here,
he said informatively, just as light footsteps came rolling down one of the paths, bringing Lee to them before he came to a stop.
Well, Lee?
Do not worry, Neji, Lee said with a thumbs up. I ran into another team in that direction, but they will not be causing us any issues if we go that way. He got a nod from the stoic, pale-eyed Lee getting in response.
You fought them?
Tenten said with a raised eyebrow and her hands on her hips, fully ready to scold her jumpsuit-clad partner.
What if you'd lost or gotten hurt?
Neji spoke up.
I would have checked with my Byakugan eventually,
he said in a manner meant to exonerate Lee.
Besides, there are only a few teams in this competition that I would say Lee had a good chance at being in trouble against. This is why I say we are guaranteed to advance. With my eyes, we'll find exactly where we need to go, and with the rest of our skills, no one can defeat us.
Tenten rolled her eyes.
Yeah, she knew they were good. Still, there had to be some kind of trepidation towards fighting.
3-on-1 was not a good affair to find oneself in no matter how good of a beginning one was, and knowing Lee, he didn't necessarily get to drop on them either.
Well, then let's get going then, Mr. Skills, because these caves are massive even if you do know where you're going.
A few hours later, with Team 10. The noise of running water sounded like music to Ino and Shikamaru's ears as Naruto began to lead them closer and closer to it. Still, as they got closer, they realized just how loud it must have been, because it took 5 minutes after first hearing the crashing water to get where they needed to be. Also, Naruto kept sending clones up on the walls and places where the path got dark. His explanation for such being, this place is booby-trapped, but whoever did it must think that everyone else sucks because they're so blatant. He had been sending his clones to deactivate explosive tags. Eventually, they came across a quickly moving stream of water, but it went back the way they came and directly into a wall.
This is what we're supposed to follow?
Ino said almost angrily.
Follow it to where? And how?
Naruto took that moment to step in and speak.
That's what I didn't know how to just come out and say. I figured you two knew something I didn't and just brought you to the closest one. I found 16 other branches in other places too. There's no way to see which one is the right one to follow though. And even then, how are we supposed to follow any of them when they end in a wall? I can't see through walls.
Well, there is always one way to follow any river,
Shikamaru said as he walked closer to it and placed his hand in the water only for it to get dragged by the current roughly until he pulled it out.
It's gonna suck, but...
Before he could finish, Naruto caught on to what he wanted and a series of clones jumped into water to be dragged away by the current.
Well, there's always that way too.
Ino gave Naruto a grin and leaned against him.
You are really the best scout ever. There's just no way of getting around that.
Naruto just laughed to himself and basked in the credit being given to him.
Yeah, I'm pretty great, huh?
If my shadow clone don't get beaten up or drowned while they're down there, then we'll know where that river takes us in just a bit.
What was that?
Shikamaru asked after an explosion went off nearby that rocked the entire area. Naruto grimaced at the memory he had just received.
One of my clones messed up trying to defuse an explosive tag in the dark.
Idiot.
Ino and Shikamaru refrained from commenting that he was basically talking about himself.
Damn, I hope no one comes looking for us because of that one.
He still had others out deactivating other traps set their remains out to watch over the path they had taken. Hopefully this area was rather vacant of anyone looking for the path to the goal. One would have to be deaf to not be able to hear the last explosion though. Ino looked into the rushing water nearby, not even able to see her own reflection through the rushing light waves. Your clones have been down there for a while. Do you think they made it to the end of this thing or what? She asked. At that moment, before he could answer, Naruto's eyes widened and he bared his teeth in threat.
Take a deep breath and get in the water,
he ordered with a low hiss, but the signs of alarm were evident for someone like Shikamaru, who knew how to read Naruto's expressions by now. If Naruto decided to beg off from something, it was obviously something to be wary of.
Did your clones reach the inn yet?
Ino asked. She hadn't turned around, so she didn't see the look on her fellow blonde teammate's face, and as close as she was to the water, she didn't hear the way he had been speaking to know that they might be in trouble. Shikamaru did, however, and knew to trust Naruto's gut. Come to think of it, it wasn't Naruto's gut he was trusting. It was the multitude of clones he had left behind as they had been traveling, especially since Naruto was looking down the way that they had just come from.
Ino, just take the deepest breath you can and get in the damn water now.
Both Shikamaru and Naruto got near the edge and prepared to jump in, and the looks on their faces let her know that this was deadly serious.
What's the matter?
Ino hadn't remembered seeing both of them so serious at the same time in quite some while.
We're being tracked,
Naruto told her,
and it's not really someone that I think we should try and fight. Not here. Now we don't have to.
His eyes kept darting towards the tunnel that all of his clones were down.
Can we go now? We don't have a lot of time.
Is he scared?
The thought was almost absurd. Naruto wasn't afraid of anything as far as Ino had seen. This was the guy that wanted to go face down a missing ninja that gave even a pair of hardened leaf Jonin second thoughts just to talk to him. As they all jumped into the river, the thought ran through her head again and again.
What on earth could actually scare him?
After a minute or two, down the path that Naruto had been looking, Kankuro and Temari emerged, looking back at the same way they had just come from with some trepidation.
Man, it's a good thing Gaara saw all those copies of the blonde kid in these tunnels. If he hadn't, he might have turned on us out of boredom,
Kankuro said. Temari wasn't convinced, however.
You didn't see any blood come from those clones, did you? That's not going to satisfy him at all. We still need to find the way to end this quickly. I think the only reason he's let us live this long is because he needs us to keep going. He hasn't really gotten to kill anyone since we've come down here. A few dozen clones, even if they are solid, they aren't gonna calm him down.
Both Kankuro and Temari swiftly wove away as a massive amount of smoke and debris flew from where they had left Gaara to deal with all the Naruto clones. They had to admit that the sheer amount that were there were rather dangerous. Temari just cut through a swatch of them and left the rest to Gaara. That was the way he would have wanted it anyway. But the explosion that had just rang out wasn't small by any measure, not nearly as big as the explosion that had just set them off in this direction. It was 5 times as intense.
Gaara!
Temari shouted in the tunnel in worry.
Gaara, are you alright?
Stop shouting, Temari.
Gaara's monotone voice responded calmly as he walked his way out of the debris with not a scratch on him.
Let's continue.
Kankuro looked at where the dust was still settling.
What happened back there, Gaara?
He felt the need to ask. The temperature seemed to drop to let him know that it wasn't the right question to ask at the moment, though. Gaara seemed to stare a hole through the black-clad sand gaining as he answered.
Eventually, whatever was left of that little attack squad realized that I would just kill them too. They attempted to blow themselves up with explosive attacks to kill me in desperation. Fools. Just like him. If I come face to face with the one that created those annoyances, I'll kill him.
The red-haired boy thought to himself.
And Temari, don't yell as if I could be defeated by something so rudimentary again.
I was just worried, Gaara.
Temari tried to assure him without upsetting him. I'm your big sister. Gaara just walked past him without sparing them a glance.
You say that as if it means something to me.
With Team 10.
Shit!
Naruto yelled as he was the first to be spat out of the tunnel of water that he and his team had been stuck in. He flew as if he'd been rocketed out of a water slide before yelling prior to landing on the ground after a 10 to 20 foot drop. Ow, he muttered to himself as he stared up the ceiling of the cave, turning his head to the side from the painful place on the ground. He saw Shikamaru get spit out next, only he managed to fall into the pool of water at the bottom of the rather short waterfall that stood at the end of their little watery route. Of course, when he got spit out of the waterfall, he flew across the nice watery landing and hit the solid ground, but Shikamaru hit the water where he could swim to the land. With Naruto's luck, next out would obviously be Ino, and she'd land right on top of his stomach.
Ow.
Ino said in the mirror of how Naruto had just moments prior, only he probably had more reason to do so at this point in time than she did. She finally noticed what exactly had broken her fall and looked down owlishly at who she was more or less straddling.
Goldie?
Naruto gave the pain grunt to let her know he was listening.
Sorry.
It's alright, Ino, Naruto replied, trying to give a reassuring grin, but letting out a cough due to getting his ribs compressed by the girl.
Could you get off, though?
Noticing the position they were in, Ino couldn't help herself and had to get a jab in.
Now this is forward of you and all, but I don't think this is the time to show your Ino-chan how much you love her though. Not like this anyway.
She laughed when Naruto pushed her aside and off of himself and stood up grumbling with a red face.
You should have taken your chance last night.
Cut it out, you troublesome blind idiots,
Shikamaru said, probably keeping a long incensed rant from Naruto breaking out as he pulled himself out of the water.
Where the hell are we now?
He looked over at Naruto for some kind of confirmation of their location. A shrug came from the orange-wearing Uzumaki.
I don't know, my clones all fell out of the waterfall the same way I did. They didn't make it through the landing though.
They also didn't have Ino land on them either, but he wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. The trio looked around the room they were in. It looked like an antechamber, as the waterfall they had all fell out of spat water that trailed around the dome-like area. A little peninsula of land being the only thing there was of solid ground that led to a door at the other end of the space. Ino wrung out the water from her clothes with a frown.
Why did we jump in so fast for Goldie's clones told him what was down here?
Naruto fought back a shiver.
My clones up top, the ones I had disarming the traps and watching our backs, they got massacred. Every single one of them, by one guy. They never touched him, even once. They never even got close.
His clones never even got close enough to use Naruto's new jutsu on the weird sand ninja. They managed to make some impact on the sand that had been attacking them, but causing internal damage on a wave of sand was a moot point. Cutting sand was a moot point as well, as their machetes were all but useless in the frontal attack as they were forced into. A last-ditch effort from his clones using the traps they had been disarming didn't give Naruto any confidence in his demise either. He hadn't even seen the other two fight, and at the moment, he didn't care about the other two at all.
Then let's get the hell out of here and end this troublesome mess,
Shikamaru said as he walked towards the door. It had to be something worthwhile. This had been the only door they had seen, period, since getting down to the tunnels. Almost 2 days of miserable, squalid searching and playing cat and mouse with bullseyes on their back. He was done with it, not needing to be told twice, as Ino wanted a shower and real food, and Naruto wanted to get as far away from that sand getting as he possibly could. They followed Shikamaru as he pushed the massive doors open and stepped inside. The doors closed behind them and leaving them in the dark. Lights in the room then flickered on to reveal a well-lit path that they walked along until they found a pair of fully armored samurai guarding the door. Shikamaru stepped up and spoke.
So, go ahead and tell me how late we are.
You are the 7th team to arrive.
One of the samurai said.
You're all safe and free to proceed. Congratulations on passing your second exam.
All three of Team 10 sighed in relief and walked past the guards to the door. One of them noticed Naruto freeze in his tracks and lagged behind his teammates.
Yes? What's the matter?
Naruto turned around and grinned disarmingly with a sheepish laugh.
There's no fighting allowed past this point, right?
The two samurai looked at each other before one of them answered Naruto.
Yes, that's correct. All of your fighting should be done outside this point. Why?
No reason, thanks, Naruto said, satisfaction evident in his face. No creepy sand ninja would be coming for him looking for a payback shot in here. Maybe. With his curiosity sated, he followed after and caught up to his other teammates, not looking back at all. Hours later. The waiting area for all passing teams turned out to be a very tranquil underground bamboo grove. For Shikamaru, it was the perfect place to catch up on some more rest. For Naruto, it was the perfect place to sit back and fix himself some ramen, and maybe get some much needed sleep after he was done eating. They had been beaten there by a few other people. A team from the Hidden Mist. One of them wore a very thick, specially made brown bodysuit that went over their head, covered their face with only his red eyes and the metal plate stitched chest of the suit visible. On their back they had a tank that looked similar to the oxygen tank that the Rain Ninja had worn before. Only it was twice the size and there was no apparatus for going around towards any kind of breathing mask. Who knew it was for? Another member of this team was a rather tall, lanky older teen, with half black and half silver hair pulled into a ponytail to the go with a goatee on his chin, and his headband on his forehead. He wore black pants and a long sleeve kimono top, and thick metal braces wrapped around the length of his forearms and around his waist. The last member of the team was a young woman with short dark hair and eyeshadow wearing a blood red battle dress and mesh stockings. Her hands were wrapped up as she had a large round shield on her back that was almost her entire size. It had an odd erratic pattern on it in colors of blue, yellow, and brown. It was weird. The same stone team that had been after Naruto and Tintin earlier were down there as well, with the one that had the shaved head, Hazashi, glimmering a hole into Naruto while his teammates relaxed and talked. Naruto didn't notice and couldn't care less, which for some reason really ground his gears. From the village hidden in the waterfalls, there was also a team there. There was a girl with spiky neck-length hair with an orange clip in it, orange eyes, and a tanned appearance. She wore a white sleeveless shirt that left much of her torso bare, as well as fishnet shorts underneath a white miniskirt. She had her village headband tied around her right bicep, and on her back she had a cylindrical object wrapped in red material. She also had quite the scowl on her face as her teammates gave her a decent berth. Speaking of her teammates, one of them was a quite average looking one. He had brown hair and something of a puffy small afro and his headband around his forehead. He wore an open black jacket with his collar turned up and a gray shirt underneath to go with his brown pants. Her other teammate was a level-headed looking shinobi with spiky black hair, strange eyes that had green irises and red sclera. He wore a long black coat that left his entire from sight actually. Also, there was a team from the Hidden Sound, with the guy that looked like a mummy leading the pack. A teeny Ginning from the Rain Village wearing white cloths over their faces with eye holes, air masks, mouthpieces, and straight jacket looking outfits, and a team from the Hidden Cloud that seemed rare as it had 2 girls and 1 boy on the team, something that Naruto wasn't necessarily used to.
One of the girls seemed pretty calm, with blonde hair and a still blue-eyed stare, while the other one was dark-skinned and had red hair and seemed to be pretty hot-headed, usually taking it out on the dark-skinned boy with white hair that was their teammate. As he focused on eating his ramen once more instead of trying to size up his possible competition, he felt a tap on his shoulder, looked over and up to see Lee standing there with a smile that seemed to gleam. Maybe Naruto was hungrier than he thought since he was seeing that. "Naruto-san, it is good to see a fellow Leaf team make it here as well as us. Tell me, how did you find the test to be?" Naruto let out a sigh as he looked down at his bowl of steaming ramen. "Let's just say I don't feel like doing this again," he said to the bushy-eyebrowed Ginny. "What about you guys? You and Tenten probably breezed right through the scene." "Neji too, I guess," he begrudgingly admitted. Never having seen the guy fight or even operate as a ninja, he couldn't just assume that he could stop Neji. First of all, that wasn't fair to Neji, and second of all, what was he gonna do if that attitude got him beaten if they just so happened to fight? "Thank you for the compliment, Naruto-san," Lee said in a very thankful manner. "My teammates and myself had a very youthful experience in the Land of Iron's wilderness around the mountains. While on the first day of the test, Lee had launched into a long story in an attempt to regale Naruto of his and his team's experiences on the mountain and in the caverns, but Naruto wasn't listening. The reason for that being that the team of Genin from the sand that he had come across by the way of his clones had just walked in, and here he was hoping they wouldn't manage to make it by tomorrow. Apparently around 24 hours was too much of a time span to be praying for a team with a guy like that to miss. And the very red head with marks around his eyes that had cut through his clones with sand, using it in ways that Naruto didn't even know sand could be used to hurt people with, looked over at him, and the world seemed to stop for just a moment. Just as quickly as the moment came, it passed. He looked away and went on about his business, letting Naruto sigh in relief. So why did he just feel like he had been marked or something? And even Tenten would have to admit that. At that time, he realized that the entire time he had been worrying about the Sand Kid, Lee had been steadily talking away. By now, he had missed so much of the conversation, there was probably no way that he could wing it if he were to be asked a question. That wasn't fair to Lee. Other than cold cocking him with a kick the day they had met, he hadn't really seemed like a bad guy. Anyone that would protect a teammate like that had to be kind of alright in his book. He had to fess up and just come clean with it. I'm sorry, Lee, were you saying something?" Naruto said in a sincere and apologetic way, and somehow he felt like that had been the wrong thing to say for an entirely foreign reason. Lee just stopped in his tracks and stared at Naruto, his eyes wide in shock or whatever emotion it was that he was feeling at the moment, before he began to shake and his eyes filled with fire. "Such a hip attitude, Naruto-san! From this day forward, you should be my eternal rival!" Naruto just tilted his head to the side in confusion. What? Even Shikamaru and Ino were paying attention at this point, and were wondering how Naruto knew such a strange guy in the first place. Thankfully, someone came along well versed enough to actually know how to handle Lee's brand of insanity, having had to deal with it for well over a year at this point. Tenten walked over and tried to get things in order. "Lee, I thought Neji was your eternal rival. How are you supposed to have two of them?" "I can balance them both!" Lee exclaimed with determination. "As long as I can routinely defeat them both, then there is no problem!" "Maybe you should work on just defeating one of them first?" Tenten suggested with a dry look on her face before pointing over to where Neji was sitting, seemingly meditating in an attempt to block out any connection he had to this strange teammate. "You've already been working on Neji for so long. You shouldn't let off of him in case you reach a breakthrough." Lee took on a pondering look before pounding his fist into his other hand. "You are correct, Tenten. I cannot afford to divert my attention away from defeating my original eternal rival now that I am so close to doing so." He turned to Naruto. "I am sorry, Naruto-san, but perhaps when I have already proven myself victorious over another, we can truly be eternal rivals." Not knowing really what to do or how to handle the situation, the blonde kiwi container just nodded and gave a weak thumbs up, getting Lee to smile and then take off back over towards Neji. With Lee more or less gone, Naruto turned to Tenten, who was smirking down at him quite triumphantly. "What just happened? And why do I feel like I got shoved out of the line of fire?" "Because you more or less just did," Tenten informed him, pointing back at Lee sitting on the ground directly in front of Neji in an attempt to find any weakness whatsoever in him that he could. If Neji's eyes weren't closed, he might have found the complete lack of blinking from Lee rather unnerving, unless you wanted to have that in your life regularly. Naruto could say that he most certainly did not. So far, he had enough problems to work out that he hadn't even begun to address to have to deal with eternal rivals yet. Except Sasuke, because he just had to kick that guy's ass. Man, he hoped Sasuke made it so he could beat him up close and personal. I don't think I want that in my life at all. Naruto admitted to Tenten, who was probably a second rival of his since he never got to prove that he could beat her. She was just way nicer than his original rival. "I would thank you, but I have to save those for after I beat you." Tenten shook her head with her arms crossed over her chest. "You're still on that, are you? Oh well, at least you aren't as bad as Lee is with it. I can deal with smacking you around once every blue moon. Just keep showing you who's boss." Her eyes then panned over to Naruto's two teammates who were looking at her with some suspicion. So, you're gonna introduce me to your team, or gonna keep me as a weird girl who could start talking to you out of the blue, as far as they're concerned? Yeah, whatever, Naruto said, rolling his eyes before pointing at her. Guys, this is Tintin, a friend of mine that I met right after I graduated. And I'm gonna beat her up one of these days. He got one flick in his ear for his trouble. What? It's true! I'm gonna beat you up one of these days. Hearing that Naruto had met her right after graduation put Shikamaru slightly at ease. She wasn't just over here to scope them out or pry any kind of secret away from them. And hearing that Naruto wanted to defeat her also made him realize that Naruto himself wouldn't tell her anything unnecessary. Thus, he went back to not caring too much about the people or things around him while he could. Nara Shikamaru, he said, giving out his name before tuning everything else out. I'm Yamanaka Ino, Ino said, seeming to size Tintin up, at least momentarily, before smirking. I see you're a friend of my Goldie. You're what? Tintin asked with a raised eyebrow. Ino sidled up to Naruto and threw one arm around him, getting him to growl at her for the embarrassing situation and for almost spilling the ramen he had in his lap. Oh, you see, Goldie is madly in love with me, but sadly, I love another. Still, he holds quite the flame for me. Isn't that right? She asked Naruto, pulling on his cheek. Naruto, to his credit, was keeping his cool, on the outside. I hope you're enjoying this now, because when the exam is over and I get the first chance, you are so getting it, he said in a steady, even-toned voice that belied the true danger that she was in. She had obviously forgotten who she was dealing with. It was his fault for not terrorizing the general populace with horrible pranks to remind her of just how dangerous he was. Actually, when he puts it that way, Tintin chose to interject, grinning down at the busting of chops proceeding to take place. Yeah, I can totally see it. I mean, he did say that you were getting it the first chance he got. What else could he mean by that other than, you know? Okay, exam or not, those two were not getting away with this. And why wasn't Shikamaru helping him out? A lot of use he was and they weren't in mortal danger for some reason. Oh well, when in doubt, curse loudly and vehemently show your displeasure with the situation. Which was just what was about to happen before an adult voice chimed in.
Hello, team.
A group of Jonin were led into the bamboo grove, one of whom were Asuma.
Good to see that you didn't turn the brat sickles out in that blizzard the other day. Way to go.
The moment of her favorite pastime over, Ino hopped up from the ground to pay attention to their sensei. Asuma-sensei, what are you doing here? Asuma gave his female student a smile.
Well, we're not gonna leave you all in this place for another day when after the test is over we have to go back to town anyway. So when you passed, we were informed and came down here to get you and take you back just to get it out of the way. I'm sure you don't want to be here any longer either.
Hell no! Was the immediate answer from Ino before she felt some embarrassment at her sudden outburst. Hearing that they were about to leave, Naruto finished off his ramen and walked over to Shikamaru, dragging him up to his feet. Get up, Shika. It's time to go. You can sleep when we get back to town. Shikamaru allowed her to groan and opened his eyes lazily. More walking? Count me out. I'll go back after I wake up, he said before shutting his eyes and trying to fall asleep on his feet. Everyone that knew him was more than certain that he could pull that off. You're already awake, Ino told him. And it's just walking. No looking over your shoulder for someone to try and kill you or trying to navigate a maze of tunnels. It's easy now. When he didn't open his eyes, Ino began impatiently tapping her foot on the ground, eventually ending with him opening his eyes. His mother did that all the time when he was about to get troublesome, and he didn't need to see Ino do it too. Resigned to his fate of more terrible walking, the bane of his existence, Shikamaru looked up at Asuma. This isn't everyone, so what about the other teams? What happens when they pass too? Asuma and Team 10 began to leave with the others who had been picked up by the other Jonin instructors through the back tunnel.
If the rest of the 12 teams show up tomorrow before noon, then they'll be led back to the village just like you. At 4 o'clock, you'll be given directions on what to do next along with them at the original meeting place for the exams.
We're not done yet? Shikamaru asked in a disgruntled manner, getting a shake of the head from Asuma. I'm never doing this crap again, he said under his breath as he shoved his hands in his pockets and followed along, hoping that whatever was set for tomorrow would be easy in contrast to the rest of the tuning exams. He could always hope, couldn't he?
End of chapter 19.